My name is Natalie Brooks. One night in Austin, my father slammed his fist on the table and told everyone I didn't respect our family. What he didn't know was that his job and several others were already sitting on my screen. If you face something like this, share your story in the comments. I had my laptop open on the kitchen counter, skimming payroll approvals and a delivery schedule that had slipped again, when my phone buzzed with my aunt's name. She reminded me, politely, firmly, that everyone was already gathering at my parents' house in Austin. I closed the laptop without replying to the last email and grabbed my keys. Dinner started the way these things always did. Plates passed, someone commented on traffic, someone else asked about work in the vaguest way possible. My phone kept lighting up. I answered 2 calls quietly, stepping a few feet away, giving short answers, promising fixes. No explanations. That usually made things worse. Richard waited until everyone had food before he struck. His fist hit the table hard enough to rattle the glasses. "You don't respect this family." No one spoke. Forks hovered. Richard looked straight at me, his jaw tight, voice loud enough to fill the room. "You think because you handle some paperwork, you get to treat us like we don't matter. Everything's going downhill, and it's because you only care about money." The phone went face down on the table. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. An email banner slid across the screen before it locked. Human Resources, performance review schedule confirmed. The timing felt almost deliberate. "Can we talk for a minute?" I said. Richard shook his head. "No, you always want things private. Say it here." Someone near the end of the table cleared their throat. "Well, at least Richard makes sure everyone still has steady work," my cousin said. "That counts for something." It landed wrong. The words hung there, off by just enough to notice. A few heads nodded anyway. Another vibration. This one couldn't wait. I stood and walked toward the hallway to take it. "Of course," Richard said. "Work again." The call was short. A supplier issue, solved in under a minute. When I came back, the room had shifted. Conversations had restarted without me. Eyes tracked me in a way they hadn't before. Someone laughed too loudly at a joke I hadn't heard. Richard was talking about the company, using the wrong name, calling me an assistant instead of what my contract actually said. No one corrected him. Someone asked how long the review process usually took. 72 hours, Richard said, confident. Wrong. I noticed the security panel by the door flashing an error message. He waved it off, said it had been acting up all week, like that explained the timing. A plate scraped nearby, then stopped, like someone thought better of it. Nobody met my eyes. Someone checked their watch. Another sip of wine followed. A chair shifted. Conversation thinned, then stalled. Glasses clinked without enthusiasm. Someone sighed. Someone stood. No one spoke. My phone buzzed again. Approval access updated. Then another notification followed, colder than the last. Permission pending. I slid the chair back, the sound sharp against the floor, and reached for my coat as the screen refreshed in my hand. The emails changed tone by morning. Not openly hostile, just different enough to notice. Threads that usually included my name no longer did. Decisions that had sat in my queue moved forward without asking. A vendor replied to a question I hadn't sent, thanking Richard for clarifying leadership. Family messages followed the same pattern. A cousin asked if everything was okay at work. An uncle forwarded an article about keeping business decisions within the family. No comment attached. No one mentioned dinner or the way it ended. Richard stayed busy. Calls went out early. He spoke to relatives, then to partners, repeating the same version with small adjustments. Natalie was overwhelmed. Natalie had taken on too much. Natalie meant well, but forgot what family came first. The story traveled faster than anything I could correct. At the office, people avoided lingering near my desk. Conversations cut short when I walked past. One manager sent a meeting invite addressed to Richard and copied me as an afterthought. Another asked if approvals should go through the usual channel now, careful not to name it. By mid-morning, Marcus Hill stepped into my office and closed the door. "They're circling," he said. "What do you see?" "Your name is still on the filings. Loans, payroll authorizations, vendor agreements. If anything goes wrong, it lands on you first." "That hasn't changed." "It has," Marcus said, "because now they're acting like it's a problem." He pulled up a chair, opened his laptop, and turned it so I could see. A dashboard of risk flags blinked yellow. "You can't argue this away," he said. "Not with him, not with them. You need documentation, logs, timestamps, everything, and you have less than 3 days." 3 days for what? "The performance review cycle. Once that closes, the narrative sticks." A notification slid across my screen before I could answer. Approval pending. No context, no explanation. The system didn't care who started what. It only tracked who failed to respond. Phones kept ringing. A client asked whether Richard was taking over negotiations. A warehouse supervisor wanted to know whose signature counted. Each call took something small and added weight to it. Marcus stayed, working quietly at the corner table. We compared records without commentary. Payroll revisions, access histories, minor changes that shouldn't have happened yet. A timestamp caught my eye. One adjustment to a salary line, made during dinner, right when I'd stepped away. "That's not me," I said. "I know," Marcus said, "but the system doesn't." We traced it back. The login matched an old credential, one I hadn't used in months. The change itself was subtle, almost meaningless financially. Enough, though, to leave a fingerprint. Another alert popped up. Approval pending. The wording was identical. The timing was not. Lunch came and went without anyone mentioning it. A group from accounting passed my doorway and kept walking. Someone laughed too loudly at something down the hall. The distance felt measured. In the afternoon, a message arrived from a family group chat I hadn't opened yet. "We're all just worried," an aunt wrote. "Your father is trying to keep things stable." No question followed. No request for my side. Richard sent a calendar invite before the day ended. Mandatory. Family and company leadership. 48 hours. Subject line, role clarification. Marcus leaned back and folded his arms. "They want this formal," he said. "They already decided," I said. "Then you need to show them something they didn't plan for." Another system message arrived as he spoke. Approval pending. The third one that day. Same words, same flat tone. I opened the log again, zoomed in, and scrolled. More entries appeared, stacked closer together than before. Each one pointed to the same access path. My phone vibrated with the meeting reminder. 2 days, no room to stall. Marcus stood. "I'll keep pulling records," he said. "You keep your head down." He paused at the door. "And don't react to them. Not yet." The door closed. The office felt smaller. The screen refreshed on its own, adding one more line to the list while the meeting countdown ticked forward. I stayed late, long after most of the office lights shut off, going through old authorization emails one by one. Not summaries, originals, the kind no one looks at unless something already feels wrong. Halfway through a thread from 2 years back, a familiar line appeared at the bottom. My name, my digital signature. Dated last week. That wasn't possible. The email granted temporary approval access, something I rarely used and never left active. The address it came from was mine, but the routing details told a different story. The timestamp matched the dinner hour, the exact minute I'd stepped away from the table. Another record lined up with it. Remote access logged from the house network. Same window, same gap. The security panel error suddenly had context it hadn't earned before. This wasn't a reaction. It was a schedule. A courier envelope waited on my desk the next morning. Inside was a letter from a law firm I recognized. Polite language, formal tone. Richard requested that I temporarily step back from operational duties while concerns were reviewed. No accusations, no explanations, just an assumption that I would comply. I walked down the hall instead. Richard was already in the conference room, jacket still on, phone face down. He didn't look surprised to see me. "We need to talk," I said. "About what?" he asked. "The authorization email." He frowned, slow and practiced. "You've been under a lot of stress," he said. "Things blur. That email used my signature. You manage dozens of those. Not from my father's house." Richard leaned back. "You're seeing patterns that aren't there," he said. "Machines don't understand context." The line landed clean, almost gentle, like advice. "I checked the access logs," I said. "Those logs flag everything," he said. "They don't know intent." "So you didn't use it?" "I didn't need to." The answer came too fast. He smiled like that ended the conversation. "You should rest," he said. "Let the process work." Outside, an assistant avoided my eyes and pretended to read something on her tablet. A manager passed by, hesitated, then kept walking. Word had already moved ahead of me. Back at my desk, another system message waited. "Approval pending." Same phrase, same neutral tone. It sat above the lawyer's letter like punctuation. Marcus stopped by without knocking. He lawyered up, he said. I noticed. "Did you confront him?" "Yes." Marcus exhaled. "That was early." "I know." He pulled up the logs again, quieter this time. "Remote access lines up with the outage," he said. "Same source. That's not coincidence." "Not anymore." Another email came through while we watched. Internal notice. Temporary compliance review initiated. My name appeared under affected roles. The system moved faster than people. It always did. Marcus closed his laptop. "If you push this formally," he said, "it triggers safeguards. I want the logs reviewed." "That puts you in scope, too." "I'm already there." A pause followed, heavy but brief. "Then do it clean," he said. "No side channels." The request form took 3 minutes to fill out. Access review. Attachments optional. I uploaded everything I had and hit submit. A confirmation screen appeared. Review initiated. Subject to standard protocol. Another message arrived right after. Access suspended pending review. Marcus stared at the screen. "That's automatic," he said. "No discretion." "I know." The office felt different as the permissions dropped away. Folders grayed out. Dashboards locked. A role I'd held for years reduced to read-only in seconds. Richard's assistant sent a short note. "Please coordinate through counsel." No signature. The system clock rolled forward a minute. Another notification queued up behind the rest. Compliance review underway. I stayed seated, watching the screen refresh, knowing exactly what I'd just triggered while the process continued without waiting for anyone to say stop. The suspension notice arrived before noon. Financial approval privileges revoked pending review. Company accounts temporarily locked for audit purposes. The language was neutral, efficient, and final in a way no person ever managed to be. Richard didn't waste time filling the gap. By early afternoon, relatives started showing up at the office under the excuse of concern. One asked if I'd eaten. Another said they just wanted to make sure everything stayed stable. Stability had become the word everyone used when they meant control. A memo followed, sent to senior staff. Richard would be assuming interim oversight to protect the family's interests. No one questioned what that meant. The signature block listed him as acting director. My name appeared once, buried under acknowledgments. When Marcus came by, he didn't sit down. "They locked you out completely," he said. I noticed. "Payroll approvals bounced back this morning. Vendors, too. So he's signing now." Marcus nodded. "He's framing it as damage control." A message from an aunt popped up on my phone. "Your father is doing what he has to do." No question, no pause. Richard called a short meeting without inviting me. The conference room door stayed closed. Voices filtered through in fragments. Concern, risk, family values. Someone mentioned trust. The system notification followed, right on schedule. Account status, restricted. The phrasing sounded almost apologetic. Marcus stayed close, not touching anything, just watching how fast the pattern repeated. Every time a question came up, Richard answered it. Every time someone hesitated, a relative stepped in to smooth it over. "This is how it works," Marcus said quietly. "He doesn't have to prove anything. He just has to say it's for family." The audit report populated slowly, line by line. Each entry confirmed what I already knew and made it worse at the same time. The payroll adjustment from dinner night showed my credential as the last active user. The system marked it as verified. No flag, no note, just a record that placed my name at the end of the chain. "That's the trap," Marcus said. "It's clean enough to pass a glance." Richard passed by my desk once. He didn't stop. "This is temporary," he said, like he was offering reassurance. "We'll sort it out." The word temporary carried weight it hadn't earned. Another email landed. Compliance review expanded. Scope widened. The list of affected permissions grew longer. Each update stripped something else away. People stopped asking questions after that. They started adjusting. A supervisor rerouted approvals without comment. A team lead thanked Richard for stepping in. Someone from accounting asked where to send revised reports. No one copied me. Marcus tried once. "This isn't right," he said, standing in the hallway where others could hear. "The data doesn't support—" Richard raised a hand. "We're not debating," he said. "We're protecting what matters." That ended it. By late afternoon, the audit system finalized its preliminary summary. The payroll change flagged as compliant, the access path confirmed. My credential sat there, neat and damning. Marcus read it twice. "They said it so whoever checked last takes the hit," he said. "And you always checked last." That was the job. Not anymore. The meeting invite for the next day arrived as if nothing had changed. Agenda, operational continuity. Organizer, Richard. Attendees, everyone but me. The office felt transactional in a way it never had before. Conversations passed without slowing. Chairs moved. Papers shuffled. Work continued. I started packing. A notebook, charger, the framed photo I'd never replaced. No one commented. Someone held the door. Someone else avoided looking up. At the elevator, Marcus stopped beside me. "You can't fight this from where you were," he said. "You see that now." The log summary refreshed on his screen. Same conclusion. Same name at the bottom. "I'll keep copies," he said, "but this isn't going to reverse itself." The elevator doors opened. I stepped in, box balanced against my hip, phone buzzing with another automated update. Account access, read only. At home, the laptop came out again, personal one this time, clean, unattached. I opened a new document and saved it under a name I hadn't used before, while the cursor blinked, waiting for the next move. The first full day without access felt longer than it should have. No inbox alerts, no dashboard updates. Threads kept moving without me, confirmed by calendar notifications I couldn't open anymore. The system didn't announce the exclusion, it simply carried on. The laptop on my kitchen table held copies I'd saved over the years. Nothing dramatic, emails, approvals, notes I'd never expected to need again. Opening them felt like handling someone else's work, except my name sat at the bottom of every page. Patterns showed up once I stopped pretending they wouldn't. Messages where Richard stepped in just this once. Threads where decisions were made after I'd already signed off. Replies sent from my account that I remembered authorizing verbally, but never typing. Each one had felt harmless at the time. Efficient. Family helping family. That was the lie I'd let stand. Work had always come first. Solve the problem. Keep things running. If something broke, fix it and move on. Titles didn't matter as long as results did. That belief had earned praise early on and invisibility later. No one questioned who held the authority if the outcome stayed smooth. Richard had noticed. He'd spoken for me in meetings I missed, signed when I was traveling, promised things I would have delivered anyway. Each step made sense on its own. Together, they built a version of me that existed only on paper. Marcus called late in the afternoon. I pulled something else, he said. Not from the main system. What kind of something else? A secondary access account. Old, dormant, reactivated months ago. And by who? He hesitated. The IP matches Richard's home network. That settled the last argument I'd been avoiding. Not about whether he'd done it, but about how long he'd planned to. Marcus forwarded the details. No commentary, just data, dates, access times. The same address that had logged in during dinner showed up again and again, always just outside business hours. Enough to stay unnoticed, enough to shape outcomes quietly. This doesn't change unless you force it, Marcus said. Force how? Independent audit. External. That's nuclear. Yes. It would cut off the last excuse. No more family language, no internal discretion. The move would also put a target on me that couldn't be walked back. Once filed, it couldn't be retracted quietly. You know what happens next, Marcus said. Richard escalates. And your name becomes a problem. I already am. Silence followed. Not awkward. Final. I looked back through the emails one more time, slower now. The moments where I'd chosen not to push. Where it felt easier to let him speak. Where I'd assumed good intent because the alternative required admitting something uglier. That cost was clear now. Authority unclaimed doesn't stay empty. Someone fills it. The audit request portal loaded on the screen. Required fields. Legal language. Warnings about retaliation protection that read more like disclaimers. Each checkbox felt heavier than it should have. Marcus stayed on the line. This ends your role, he said, even if you're right. I know. And family won't see it that way. I know that, too. The cursor blinked at the signature field. My name, typed carefully. Not because it mattered legally, but because it was the last time it would be used this way. Submit. The confirmation page appeared instantly. Request received. Review initiated. Reference number generated. A new email arrived before the page finished loading. Notice of audit request acknowledged. Another followed seconds later. Relevant parties notified. Richard didn't call right away. That almost surprised me. The system, however, stayed consistent. Status updated. Access unchanged. Process moving forward. Marcus exhaled. Now we wait, he said. For how long? Not long. The call ended. The house felt empty in a practical way. Not lonely, just unused space. I closed the laptop and reopened it, this time pulling up a folder I hadn't touched in years. Notes from earlier projects, old contracts, personal backups. The audit would take what it needed. What came next wouldn't be decided by them. Another notification chimed. Automated. Neutral. External review scheduled. I watched it sit there, knowing the response was already forming on the other end, while the cursor waited for whatever I chose to open next. The audit team moved faster than I expected. Not toward answers, but toward exposure. Requests came in batches, precise and clinical. Access logs, third-party emails, third-party contracts. Every document pulled something loose. Marcus called mid-morning. You need to see this, he said. He shared a screen capture from the audit portal. A name appeared in the access history that hadn't come up before. A cousin who had handled vendor relations years ago. The account was inactive on paper, but not erased. It had been used sparingly, always during odd hours, always routed through the same external consultant. That consultant again, I said. Yes, Marcus said. Same one who advised on the restructuring after the bad quarter. The pieces shifted. That quarter hadn't just been difficult. It had been covered. Losses moved, numbers smoothed, decisions delayed. The email authorizations I'd assumed were harmless backups suddenly looked preserved on purpose, like spare keys taped under the mat. Another request arrived from the audit team, asking for footage timestamps tied to the security outage. The house system records weren't maintained internally. They were managed by the consultant. That explained the timing, too. This wasn't about control alone. It was about hiding mistakes that couldn't survive daylight. Richard responded before the auditors finished. A legal filing landed in my inbox, CC'd broadly. Allegations of misuse of authority, financial harm, breach of duty. The language was aggressive, built to sound inevitable. The next blow followed an hour later. An internal statement circulated, signed by a manager who had once backed my decisions without hesitation. Now the tone had shifted, memory adjusted, support retracted. The line that stood out claimed uncertainty about my directives during the period under review. Marcus didn't bother to soften it. They flipped him, he said. How? Pressure or protection, probably both. Another notice popped up. Evidence preservation required. Access to certain materials temporarily suspended due to active litigation. The portal locked. Files I'd uploaded days earlier went gray. The audit team still had copies, but my direct line to them disappeared behind a legal wall I hadn't built. That's deliberate, Marcus said. They're slowing your visibility while speeding theirs. A meeting invite followed. Official. Attorneys listed. Board members included. The subject line referenced fiduciary responsibility. Richard's name led the attendee list. The scale of it settled in then. Not as fear, but as clarity. This wasn't a family argument that had escaped control. It was a system designed to absorb risk by pushing it outward, and I was standing at the edge of it. Another message arrived, this one from the consultant's firm. A polite request for all communication to route through counsel. No greeting, no signature. The audit team sent one last update before the freeze completed. Additional parties identified. Scope expanded retroactively. That explained the cousin, the consultant, the timing of every helpful intervention over the years. Marcus leaned back in his chair when I told him. They've been cleaning up since that quarter, he said. You just didn't know you were part of the process. Until I stopped being useful. Until you asked the wrong question. A calendar reminder chimed. 2 hours until the legal meeting. The agenda attached itself automatically. Preliminary findings, response strategy, interim governance. The system worked even when no one spoke. Another alert followed, quieter but more personal. A family message from Richard. This didn't have to go this far. No apology, no denial, just framing. I didn't reply. The house was still. Not peaceful, just functional, like a waiting room. Notes covered the table now, names, dates, connections that had once been separate. The story no longer fit into a single motive or moment. Marcus called again before the hour changed. They'll try to isolate you in there, he said. Procedural language, shared concern. They'll say it's about stability. And the evidence? They'll question its handling, chain of custody, motive. Another system notification interrupted him. Evidence access restricted pending review. The same phrase used everywhere. Neutral, absolute. The last thing that loaded was the meeting packet. My name appeared in bold, followed by a summary that read like a stranger's biography. Actions stripped of context. Decisions reframed as intent. The invite timer ticked down. 30 minutes. Marcus stayed on the line. This is bigger than you thought, he said. I see it now. And you're walking in without leverage. Yes. The call ended. The meeting link waited, already active, while the cursor hovered over the join button and the clock kept moving towards something that hadn't decided what it was yet. The meeting opened without ceremony. Attorneys filled the long side of the table. The independent accountant sat near the screen, files already queued. A few family members had taken seats along the wall, invited under the language of transparency. Richard sat at the head, composed, hands folded as if this were routine. No one asked how I was. The chair across from him waited. Taking it shifted something small but noticeable. The agenda appeared on the screen, dense with phrasing designed to slow time. A lawyer started. "We're here to address concerns regarding operational conduct and—" "I asked for this format," I said. Heads turned, not surprised, just recalculating. "This is the right room," I continued. "All of you are here. That matters." Richard nodded once, almost indulgent. "Proceed," he said. The accountant brought up the first file at my request. Access logs, dates, usernames. "This shows a secondary account," I said. "Dormant, reactivated." Richard leaned back. "Technical noise," he said. "These systems flag ghosts all the time." "Then let's keep going." The next screen listed IP addresses, locations, consistency over time. "That address belongs to my home," Richard said. "We share networks." "And devices?" I asked. He shrugged. "You're reading too much into it." The accountant clicked again. Device identifiers appeared. The consultant's hardware logged repeatedly, always paired with the same inactive family account, always outside office hours. Richard's lawyer cleared his throat. "We dispute the interpretation." "Of course," I said. "That's why there's more." The final report loaded. Third-party forensic review. Independent, time-stamped, signed. The accountant spoke for the first time. "The activity aligns across systems," she said. "Timing, origin, and device. It's not incidental." Silence followed. Brief, but complete. Richard smiled tightly. "This is still circumstantial," he said. "You're implying intent." An alert chimed across the room. Not mine alone. Phones buzzed in sequence. "Audit completed successfully." The words appeared on the screen behind us, impersonal and perfectly timed. No one laughed. A cousin near the wall exhaled without realizing it. The accountant continued. "The payroll adjustment placed responsibility on Natalie's credential by design," she said. "It functioned as a shield." Richard's lawyer leaned forward. "We'll need time." "You had years," the accountant said, not raising her voice. The room shifted again. Chairs moved. Someone closed a folder they'd prepared to use later. Another document surfaced. This one traced advisory decisions back to the same consultant. Losses deferred. Records preserved. Email authorizations kept active long past necessity. A family member stood, then sat back down without speaking. Richard finally looked at me directly. "You could have come to me," he said. "This didn't need to be public." "It needed to be accurate," I said. A legal assistant entered quietly and handed papers to Richard's attorney. He scanned them, then stiffened. "These orders take effect immediately," the assistant said. Richard didn't reach for them right away. "What orders?" he asked. "Interim suspension of operational authority," she said, "pending investigation." The phrase hung there, familiar and inverted. Richard stood, slow this time. "This is an overreaction," he said. "I was protecting my family." No one answered. The board chair spoke next, measured. "We'll appoint temporary oversight," he said. "External." The door closed somewhere behind us, not loudly, just enough. Richard gathered his things without help. The consultant's name appeared once more on the screen, highlighted, then removed from the agenda, as if that settled it. The meeting moved on without him. As discussions shifted to transition plans, my phone buzzed again. Another automated message, already redundant. Authority updated. The accountant began outlining next steps. Lawyers took notes. Family members watched, quieter now, as if unsure where to place themselves. A document slid across the table toward me. Acknowledgement of findings. Signature requested. The pen felt heavier than it should have. I signed. The meeting continued, procedural and contained, while the screen refreshed behind us and the system recorded every change in real time, already moving on to whatever came next. The investigation didn't announce itself with drama. It arrived as calendar blocks, document requests, and meetings that didn't include family titles anymore. Richard's name moved from the top of agendas to the middle, then to footnotes. Questions followed him into rooms where he no longer led the conversation. People noticed. At work, his authority narrowed to explanations. At home, invitations stopped coming. Group messages went quiet, then split into smaller ones that never included both of us. The standing Sunday dinners disappeared without anyone formally canceling them. Someone suggested schedules were just busy now. No one argued. The company moved on in the way organizations always do. Interim leadership stayed interim. External oversight extended itself. Processes tightened. Richard's decisions became subjects instead of defaults. The family name remained on the building, but not on the approvals. I wasn't part of that structure anymore. Paperwork handled the separation cleanly. Resignation acknowledged. Access relinquished. Obligations settled. No speeches, no counteroffers. The exit interview asked neutral questions and recorded neutral answers. The system didn't ask why. Marcus called once it was official. "You're clear," he said, "completely." That was the point. A contract from another firm arrived later that week. Operations role, Austin-based. No shared accounts, no family ties, everything routed through my own credentials. Signing it felt straightforward in a way nothing else had for months. The old system sent one final message the next morning. Access removed. The wording made me pause. It sounded less like punishment and more like confirmation. Richard tried once, a short message, no accusations, no apology either. "We should talk." I didn't reply. Forgiveness, it turned out, didn't require conversation. It required distance, the kind that doesn't invite interpretation. Family events adjusted around that choice. A cousin crossed the street to avoid an awkward hello. An aunt sent a birthday card with no return address. Someone asked Marcus if I was doing okay, then never followed up. It was easier for them to let the space exist than to name it. Work filled the gap quickly. New problems, different systems, clear boundaries. Decisions made without side channels or inherited expectations. When questions came up, they were answered in meetings, not kitchens. The last loose end was the office keys. They'd been sitting in a drawer since the suspension, metal worn smooth from years of use. I hadn't thought about them until the building manager emailed to ask where to send replacements. I didn't ask for a meeting, just slid the keys into a plain envelope, wrote the address, and dropped it in the outgoing mail slot on my way out. The new apartment felt temporary in a way I liked. Furniture still sparse, boxes half unpacked, no shared history built into the walls, the kind of place that didn't assume anything about who belonged there. Another notification arrived that evening, not from work, from a family thread I hadn't left. "Hope you're well," someone wrote. No follow-up, no reply expected. I closed the app. The front door clicked shut behind me, solid and unremarkable. Keys went onto the counter by habit, then paused. The ring was lighter now, only the ones I needed. The laptop opened again, this time to onboarding forms that asked practical questions and waited patiently for answers. Start date confirmed. Credentials pending. The cursor blinked. Outside, traffic moved like it always did. Inside, the space stayed still, holding nothing that needed to be defended. Another system email arrived from the new job, automatic and efficient. Account setup in progress. I set the phone face down, turned the lock once more to be sure, and started opening boxes, leaving the door closed while the rest of the evening carried on without asking for anything back.